Welcome to Spook Splice, where every shadow whispers a story and every turn leads to the unknown. I continued my walk, drawn almost magnetically towards the stage set up in front of One Times Square, right beneath the towering flagpole that would soon send the New Year's ball descending into the year to come. It was almost surreal standing here, so close I could see the very expressions on the performers' faces. How is this even possible? I wondered. On any normal New Year's Eve, this spot would be coveted by thousands. Yet here I was, stepping into it without a single shove or push. The indifferent, scattered crowd milled around, showing no interest in jostling for a better view or securing a front-row spot. Their lack of enthusiasm was as baffling as it was eerie. Each person lost in their own world, oblivious to the prime real estate of Times Square on New Year's Eve. As I settled into my unlikely front-row spot, my attention shifted to the performance unfolding before me. The first act was a singer, her gown a cascade of shimmering fabric reminiscent of the 1920s flapper style, complete with tassels and a headband that glinted under the stage lights. She clutched an old-timey microphone, but as she began to sing, her voice wavered off-key, the notes struggling to find harmony with the jazzy, discordant music that filled the air. It was an unsettling rendition, the melody twisting into something almost unrecognizable. Next, the stage was taken over by dancers clad in metallic costumes that seemed to borrow from both the past and a distant imagined future. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, as they performed a routine to a tune that sounded like it was plucked from an old, forgotten record, its rhythm odd and out of place in the modern world. The dancers' expressions were focused, yet distant, as if they were performing for an audience from another era. Each performance, rather than stirring excitement, left a growing sense of unease, as though I was witnessing a show meant for a very different Times Square than the one I thought I knew. Feeling overwhelmed by the bizarre spectacle before me, I decided it was time to retreat into something more familiar. I pulled out my phone, eager to scroll through social media feeds and check for New Year messages from my family. A comforting dose of normalcy seemed necessary after the surreal scenes I'd just witnessed. I longed for the cheerful buzz of friends' celebrations and the warm wishes that usually mark the end of one year and the beginning of another. To my disappointment, the phone seemed to have other plans. The screen was a frustrating display of endless buffering, each circle spinning aimlessly as if caught in its own New Year's countdown. My attempts to send messages were met with the perpetual sending status, the texts stubbornly refusing to leave my outbox. It was as if the device, too, had been pulled into the night's eerie atmosphere, disconnecting me from the world I knew and leaving me stranded in this strange, quiet version of Times Square. As the peculiar night wore on, I found myself aimlessly scrolling, hoping for some distraction. I flicked through social media feeds, hoping to catch glimpses of familiar faces and lively celebrations. I tapped on YouTube, half expecting to find some new story from Spook Splice that might pique my interest, offer a brief escape into a world of crafted horror that somehow seemed less unsettling than the reality around me. But all I encountered was the relentless buffering, a digital void where not even the eerie tales I usually savored could reach me. I was left to simply watch and wait, surrounded by the thin crowd and the increasingly bizarre show as the minutes ticked slowly towards the new year. Hours later, as if in response to my silent pleas, something finally changed. As the countdown neared, a live feed on YouTube began streaming through the persistent digital fog. The image was grainy, supporting only the lowest buffering quality, but it was unmistakably an NBC live feed of New York's Times Square. To my shock and confusion, it depicted a sea of people, a stark contrast to the sparse gathering around me. The screen was filled with joyful cheers, vibrant live performances, and Mariah Carey commanding the stage with confetti flying through the air in a colorful cascade. Wait, what is going on? I thought, my heart racing with confusion. Am I not right here in Times Square at this very moment? The glaring disparity between what was before my eyes and what was on the screen left me reeling, struggling to grasp the reality of the situation as the final seconds of the year ticked away. Panic surged within me. What's happening? I blurted out, my voice tinged with desperation as I turned to the few people around me. Hey, are you guys not seeing this? I waved my phone in the air, the screen still displaying the starkly different scene. But my outburst seemed to ripple unnoticed through the crowd. They glanced at me with a mixture of indifference and mild amusement, as if I were some clueless performer in the night's macabre spectacle. Feeling a growing sense of dread, I attempted to run, to find some shelter or a familiar face that might offer a shred of sanity in this bewildering world. But as I moved, the scattered onlookers simply stepped aside, their gazes following me with detached curiosity, showing no concern for my growing distress. I was alone in my panic, a solitary figure losing his grip on reality as the final moments of the year approached. And then it began, the countdown. 10, 9, 8. The once indifferent crowd came to life, but not in the way I'd hoped. They all stood still, their eyes fixated on the ball, counting down mechanically in unison. An eerie, dark red ball, like a drop of blood suspended in the sky, continued its descent. As it finally reached 0, sinister fireworks erupted in the sky. Not the bright and joyous bursts I expected, but slow, sinister blooms of color that painted the night in shades of dread. The crowd began to clap, each pair of hands meeting in perfect, unsettling synchronization. Then, as if guided by some unseen conductor, they all turned to face me, their eyes devoid of warmth, their expressions blank. Suddenly, a collective eerie smile, wooden and puppet-like, spread unnaturally across their faces, sending the deepest chill down my spine and into my soul. I realized then, with the horror that clawed at my very being, that I was not just an observer, but the focus of this twisted New Year's ritual. Then came the voice, a sound that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere, resonating from the depths of space, or perhaps the bowels of some abysmal hell. It was deep and resonant, each word vibrating through the air around me.
Welcome, our newest dweller since the annual balldrop ritual of 1904. You are this year's chosen one to fulfill the pact with the flip side. Your sacrifice will be eternally commemorated by all the surface dwellers of New York City.
The words hung heavy in the air, a sentence passed down from an unseen judge. Around me, the crowd continued their synchronized clapping, their mouths contorted into wide, exaggerated grins, the corners stretched too high, as if some alien force were attempting to mimic a human smile. I stood frozen, the realization crashing over me like a tidal wave. This wasn't just a strange turn of events. It was a ritual, and I was the unwitting centerpiece. The city I'd come to for a new beginning had chosen me for something far more ancient and sinister. The ground beneath my feet felt like it was shifting, the very fabric of reality warping as the voice's promise of sacrifice echoed in my mind. So here I am, standing in Times Square of the flip side, the clandestine underworld concealed beneath the bustling city I once called home. I'm hastily recording my story on my phone, a final testament before my last shred of consciousness is consumed by the enigmatic force surrounding me. Soon, I'll be just another emotionless soul, aimlessly wandering these ghostly streets, my eyes hollow, my spirit lost. To those of you reading, listening, and watching, remember this. Behind every celebration, every festival or carnival's joy, there's a sacrifice. Someone, somewhere, is bearing the weight of an ancient pact with forces unseen, ensuring that our happiness doesn't disturb the delicate balance of the flip side. Beware the allure of the bright lights and the thronging crowds, for you never know when you might be the next chosen to fulfill the dark contract. Join us at Spook Splice. Delve into the tales we share and perhaps, just perhaps, you'll learn how to avoid becoming the next victim of the unseen world that lurks just beneath the surface of our own